over 3 years since the last release. Finally complete. Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar book review. This is going to be my review for the Deluxe Edition of Beasts of the Four Nations. So this is the new art/lore book about the animals of Avatar, and specifically I'm going to be talking about the deluxe version of this book, which of course is this book, but of course the deluxe set comes in a slipcase and you get a lithograph with it, and I'll go over this in just a second. But to get the kind of basic information out of the way, I reviewed this book earlier on in the week on Tuesday, based off the digital copy that I got. So that book, that review is mostly just about the kind of contents of the book. It's not really about the the presentation, because I didn't have the physical copy at that point in time. So I would recommend that you check out that video if you want more of a really deep dive into, say, the text of the book and why it's maybe not the greatest aspect of the book, and that it does have some problems. It's maybe not as insightful as it could have been. This one, I'll be able to highlight more of what's the positive side of the book, which is that it is a really nice art book for the animals of Avatar, even if, yes, it is unfortunate that the text is a little bit of a letdown. So this video is going to focus more on, of course, what is the deluxe edition for Beasts of the Four Nations? What's it like? As you saw with the kind of insert video just a minute ago, what's it like to finally have the full set of the deluxe editions finally complete after all these years? And of course, we'll take a look at the physical book itself, where, of course, this is for, even if you're not planning to get the deluxe edition, the core book is still basically the same outside of the shiny foil cover here that's part of the deluxe set. So let's first of all cover the deluxe set specifically. I've covered the previous ones of this before. I have videos on all the other deluxe sets. I've been collecting this since it started, and it's interesting because here's the insert from like the back of this release, and you can see they still have it on here. They're still advertising the deluxe thing, which after all these years I'm almost surprised they included this here, but I guess, hey, it's a selling point for the deluxe set. Of course they were going to. And yeah, it's finally complete. You saw the video at the start. They highlighted here. The deluxe set basically consists of 6 hardcover books in this exact style, where they come with slipcases, the book itself, and a lithograph. Beasts of the Four Nations is the 6th and final of these books. The other 5 are, the first one is the Avatar The Last Airbender art book, 2nd edition, deluxe edition. The second one is the Legend of Korra book 1 art book, 2nd edition, deluxe edition. And then it's the other 3 Korra art books, Korra book 2, Korra book 3, and Korra book 4. So it's 1 ATLA art book, 4 Korra art books, and then 1 Beasts of the Four Nations book about animals. Altogether, they will complete your deluxe set, completing the Ravavatu image, which is the main highlight of this collection overall. So, let's talk about the deluxe set and what you actually get. On the book itself, there are 2 of the features of the deluxe edition. One, like I said already, is the gold foiling for Beasts of the Four Nations on the cover. That is one of the features. On the standard version of the book, you don't get that foiling. It's just in white, I think. One of the other features is you do get a ribbon bookmarker here, this time in gold. Very kind of low-level kind of feature here for the deluxe set, but they highlight it every single time. So they're the 2 differences with the actual book itself. Everything else is sort of the rest of the stuff that you get. So, of course, you also get the lithograph. So this is sort of like your, I would say, the second of the main things that make up the deluxe set. So, what you get here is this. So, what this is, it's a folio to protect your lithograph kind of art print here, which in this case is this really nice and exclusive image of the cabbage merchant with some ostrich horses. This is different than the ostrich horse full art piece of art that's in the book. So this one is exclusive. You can only get this piece of art if you get the deluxe set with the lithograph. I think that's cool. It's different than the other deluxe sets, where what they did for their lithograph was, because they were all second edition art books, they had the lithograph be the cover for the first edition art book, so the original release, because they did new covers for all those art books for the second edition releases. It did mean that, like, there was no kind of new thing necessarily with the lithograph. It was just the older cover. It was a cool feature to have to reference the kind of past, but it maybe made the lithograph not feel as important, I think, with the other releases. Here, at least, you know, it is a kind of cool exclusive piece of art that isn't in the normal edition of the book. I do maintain that this and stuff like, say, the ribbon bookmarker feel like they lean into the deluxe edition by just being, I would almost say, like, needlessly fancy. In terms of, like, ribbon bookmarker and then like a lithograph in a folio, and it just kind of feels like I'd maybe rather have just more art prints than some of the presentation stuff going on here. Like, give me a bunch of art cards of the some of the big full page pieces of art from inside the book. In that one thing I'd actually really like to see Dark Horse do after this book is almost just do a animal poster collection like you did for the ATLA poster collection and the Korra poster collection. Just take a bunch of those full page pieces of art and put them into one of those big poster collections like they did in the past. I think that's your absolute highlight from this book, is those big pieces of art. And I'd love to see it really get that kind of highlight in a poster collection as well. Because I think the thing with these is that you often feel like, oh, I kind of want to keep it in this to keep the collection together, because the slipcase is kind of built with this and the hardcover book in mind in terms of the amount of space. So it's not really an extra thing. And sure, you could take the print out and do whatever you want with it, but it just kind of feels like, you know, something different could be done here. The format of, like, what makes a set deluxe for Dark Horse, I think it's just a little bit plain. It's not very kind of like fun or exciting. They lean a little bit too much into fancy for me, where, like, gold foil, ribbon bookmarker, folio, it's a lithograph, you know, not an art print, and like the technical kind of aspect to that as well. Whereas I think the only, like, thing that feels like, yeah, this is what people really, really want from something like this is the slipcase. Now, admittedly, a lot of it is just because it finishes the set here. It's part of the spine image that finishes the set, so you get the end of the Earth logo, end of the water logo, and the whole other edge of the piece that has Rav and Vatu on it. It is a quality slipcase. Like, it's pretty sturdy overall. The only other extra kind of like marking on it is each of them has a symbol on it, so it's different for all of them. This one has this symbol on it. Now, this symbol is a weird one where, like, I can't remember where it was really explained what this was. I don't think it's ever been, like, super officially explained, but it effectively is meant to be this thing. Like, it's a symbol that sort of represents all four elements in a way as one. It's not quite an avatar symbol. It's just meant to be sort of like a symbol that is kind of elements of all of the four element symbols together as one. Some of the board games kind of use this as sort of the element wildcard symbol, where if you roll this, you can choose to have it be represented as fire, earth, air, or water. It's that sort of idea. Now, they changed this. The original 2021 announced version of this book showed us what the symbol was here, and it was a different one. It was kind of like a logo with like a sky bison, I assume it was Appa, on it, and some other kind of little bits and pieces. And it was quite kind of fun, given that, like, it's the slipcase for the book about the animals, and instead they've gone for this very like at a guess, how many people in the fandom actually know what this symbol means? And I think that's a big problem. That question is like anyone working on the project is just like, do you know what it means? Like it's one of those things where, like, it's for kind of hardcore fans, but it's like, that's cool, but I think I prefer the Appa logo that you had before. Love to know the reason why they changed it, because this feels just a little bit like plain. when it's a fun book about all the animals? It's a very odd decision. And on a book that has, I think, a few odd decisions made about it that mean that the book is not as good as I think it could and should be, which I think is a little bit unfortunate overall. So the deluxe set, it's the same as I'm going to say about all of them. I said this in all 5 previous of these videos. I'm going to say it here. The deluxe set, I just think is too expensive for what it is. It's $80. It's double the price of the standard copy of the book, which is $40 for just the hardcover. And you're paying $40 for the slipcase, the lithograph with the folio, foil cover, and a ribbon bookmarker. And I just don't think it adds up. Maybe there's some technical thing about like the production on a slipcase is actually like super expensive or something like that. But it doesn't, for me, add up. And this is now the 6th time we've gone through this, and I just don't really think it's there. Now, of course, you can get the book for cheaper. 80 is the kind of full retail price. You will online be able to get it for at least a little bit cheaper than that. But I think for a lot of people, it's like, yeah, the price needs to come way down to make it a more justified kind of cost. I think a lot of people are just going to go in on this to finally complete the set, just to kind of have this and have the really cool fun factor on the shelf. Because that is really cool. As a collector of Avatar kind of merchandise and books especially, this set on the shelf over there just looks really, really amazing. It's such a cool idea, the spine image thing, to the point where, like, I love it when they do it. They did it on the omnibus editions for Avatar comics. They did it here. I'm kind of wondering, like, we assume we're going to be getting more art books for the upcoming Avatar Studios projects, like the Aang movie, Seven Havens, Season 1, Season 2, the other movies, the other series. It'd be interesting if they maybe did another spine image type thing, but we knew maybe ahead of time there was always going to be a deluxe edition. That would be kind of cool. I just think they probably need to maybe reassess what the rest of the deluxe edition actually is. Or just lower the cost and have the slipcase be like the only kind of extra thing. Maybe make the art on the other sides of it like a little bit more interesting, and so it stands out more by itself rather than just the only unique things about each slipcase is what's printed here and what's printed here. And like I said, stuff like maybe art cards, or even like I'd say like stickers is of some of the art that's like within the books might be something that takes it in a slightly different direction overall. I just think it maybe leans a little bit too fancy for the sake of fancy. But that's just kind of my general thoughts on the deluxe sets in terms of where my preference is. So that out of the way, where of course the buying decision is ultimately like up to you. Do you think it's value for money? Do you think it's not? You can find the right place to get it for the right price. You can wait. It'll probably come down in price a little bit. I'm pretty sure the other deluxe sets are still available. I'm pretty sure they have kept them roughly in print in terms of cycling through them. We might be in a situation where 1 or 2 of them are not quite available, but they probably will become available again. I'm assuming, especially with the incoming release of this, they kind of knew that, like, yeah, we kind of need to get these back on the shelves, just so it's not just for people who remember this thing from like 3 years ago, because that's the big point. The Korra Book 4 art book came out 3 years ago. It's taken us over 3 years to finally get this 6th and final part of the set, and it is nice to have that at long last. So last thing to do in the video is to actually just go over the book itself. So like I said, the only deluxe specific features of the book itself from the deluxe set are just the foiling on Beast of the Four Nations and the ribbon bookmark. If you just get the hardcover by itself, this will just, I think, be in white and there'll be no ribbon bookmarker. Otherwise, the book is going to be exactly the same. And Dark Horse always do really, really nice hardcover books. Whether it's the library editions for the comics, the hardcovers for the art books, Avatar and Korra, or this, they're always pretty high quality hardcover books, and it's exactly the same here. The only maybe slight difference is just because of the page count of this book, it's a little bit shorter than the other hardcovers we've had previously. This is 128 pages. The previous, I think, shortest hardcover book that we had was the Korra Book 1 art book, which I think was 144 pages. So this is just a little bit shorter than that. That might be something for you when it comes to the kind of pricing. Obviously, the standard book is just $40. But you might feel that amount of pages for that much is not what you want. But again, you should be able to get some deals for this book and maybe get it closer to 30 from specific places online. That buying decision is, of course, up to you. So yeah, the outside of the book, pretty nice. You kind of have the kind of brown kind of underlying color. You get some of the kind of cropped version of the kind of Momo kind of full page image from inside the book on the back. The text on the spine, as you can see here, Beasts of the Four Nations, creatures from Avatar and Korra, Dark Horse books, and you get a kind of gold version of the Dark Horse logo there. The cover itself we've had for such a long time. It's the same cover from what we had back when it was originally announced in 2021. The only thing I think you can tell that like the book was maybe slightly different when this cover was made compared to like what the book actually is now is just that you can see that Twee and Law are here on the cover, whereas Twee and Law are not covered in the book. There are no spirits in the actual book itself, even though the description for this book, I think still to this day up on the Dark Horse website, at least it was as of Tuesday when I recorded my review for the digital version of the book, it's still mentioned that apparently spirits are also included in the book, but they're not. Not even the unusual situation of Twee and Law in their sort of like mortal forms, they're not in here. Elephant Koi is in here, but not those two. So you can tell that the book, I think, was originally envisioned with spirits in it in the first place, and they, for whatever reason, decided not to go ahead with that for the final version of the book. It's one of the few places where you can really see that there was a bit of a switch up between the original idea and what we ended up with. But otherwise, we just need to get into the book itself. So, usual pretty nice presentation on the inside as we go through the kind of like title page, and you get your first kind of insert image here. This is the kind of pig chicken, which in the book, interestingly, they cover as like pig hybrids. They just group together everything that is something pig all together on one page, and there's one of them. You get your kind of credits pages where you highlight that it's written by John O'Brien, the show, of course, created by Mike and Brian. A lot of your editors and publishers kind of listed here, and then the individual artists all mostly get credited underneath every image that appears basically in the book, like down the corner and the part of each of the pages. You do get the introduction by Brian Konietzko, which interestingly it does say it was written in November 11th, 2024, which interestingly was in or around where we first heard the kind of rumors, some of the artists talking about they're actually working on stuff for this book, which was our first sign that this book hadn't been completely abandoned before it was kind of re-announced basically in February kind of 2025 with the anniversary press release. We knew that the hardcover book mentioned there was basically Beasts of the Four Nations, but still, interestingly. The introduction is pretty nice. It's interesting because, of course, Brian, as the more art-focused of the two creators, of course, he kind of came up with, I suppose, the original sort of idea of like, oh yeah, hybrid animals are kind of part of Avatar, and he mentions that a lot of his early sketches were mostly animals and not really many human characters. Really only the very early concept for Aang in there. Otherwise, everything else was animals, and even he's amazed to see, as all the other artists came on board to help with Avatar and Korra, how much the animals of Avatar have evolved into their own thing and are such a memorable part of the show. So actually a pretty nice intro here from Brian. We then get into the section of the book that kind of helps to explain the kind of why the book is done in the way it is. So this is, to a certain degree, you can view this as being this page is the page where it kind of goes wrong a little bit here. The following was written by a young Avatar Aang and donated to the Earth King's library in Ba Sing Se. So yeah, this book is an in-universe book written by Aang, young Aang. Later on in the book, he gives context that he's 12 when he at least is writing parts of this book. Though I don't think there's really anything in the book that gives you any particular insight into the fact that this was or was not a long writing process on this book. That's the only real thing that properly dates it, other than the fact that the selection of animals is mostly just what we see in ATLA, with a few Korra animals thrown in because it would be weird to leave them out. And that's why you need to have the inserts from some of the Korra characters talking about those animals in particular. But you can then see sort of the way that the book goes on to be done, where like there's chapter 1 for like domesticated animals, chapter 2 for wild animals, like chapter 3 for like enlightened animals. And then within each of these chapters, it's broken down by sort of like smaller groupings of animals, like say animals that are very, very friendly, animals that are, you know, domesticated, live with humans, animals you can ride on, animals you shouldn't ride on, animals that are probably like, you know, dangerous animals, that sort of idea. So it does try to group them up a little bit. There is an index at the back in alphabetical order if you are just looking for any kind of particular animal. Let me just kind of try to show you guys that. So yeah, index at the back of the book here, highlighting the, I think, 55 different entries that there are for animals. But then you can see immediately the idea, like I talked about in my review on Tuesday, that the first proper piece of art that you see in the book is in black and white. It's a sketch of a kind of lemur. It's not in color because they're going for the in-universe stuff, not just in the sense that Aang is writing the text and it's not just like an encyclopedia entry type thing. It's not written by a random zoologist in the Avatar world. It's written by Aang, but that it also affects the kind of visual presentation throughout the book, in that you can see the background color on the pages is that sort of like paper kind of scroll kind of color. And because of that, a lot of the art on these pages is in black and white. There's a few images that are in color, but basically about half, or I think it's just over half of the art in the book is done in this style. And I do find that to be a little bit of a weird choice, because it's clearly a choice that is made based on the in-universe aspect of this book, to go along with that, because it's meant to be Aang writing this text to get that across in the way that they want. They're doing all these sketches of the animals. Whereas in my mind, I'm kind of like, you can still make this an in-universe book while still having the book be just presented in the most effective way possible to a reader, given that it is actually a product Avatar fans are going to be buying. So I think like the decision could have been made to have basically all the art in the book be color, and it still partially feels like an in-universe book. So I think the level to which they went in on the in-universe stuff is just a little bit frustrating to me. Mostly on the text department. I want to be clear, most of my criticism of that decision is that I think the text is particularly like below par. Not that it's bad, I think it's just like aggressively average throughout. Sometimes it's fine, it's fun, seeing some of the references is cool, but I definitely think it's not me being a crazy like super fan who just wants everything to be full of information to suggest that anyone buying this book and really going into it is probably excited to come out of this book learning a lot more new things about the animals. And I don't really feel I came out of this learning that much new about the animals. And in that sense, I do think the text is a bit of a kind of failure point with this book, where maybe in the early stages of planning, they wanted to do more, but then for whatever reason, they settled on, we'll fill it up with Aang being characterful, other characters doing insert stuff, and that's how we're going to go about doing this book, which unfortunately means the book isn't as good as it could be. The text is well below par. My criticism of over the black and white images is mostly a minor criticism, in that as a big hardcover book, like kind of what I went over in the first part of this video, the fact that, you know, $40 for this book or $80 if you get to the deluxe edition, and then like you say to someone, oh yeah, half the art in this book is in black and white. I think a lot of people would look at you and just go like, wait, in a big expensive Avatar art book, it's done like that. And then, sure, you can explain to them that the reason for that is that, oh, they tried to go for this in-universe Aang journal style thing, and that's the reason for it. I still think most people are probably going to look at you and be like, okay, but really? Like, half the art? Okay. And that's my thing here, is that they commit to the in-universe thing to a certain degree, but then it doesn't feel like the text fully commits to it, but it affects the art, at least in my opinion. And that's the kind of frustration here. And that I still think it's a book that I recommend to Avatar fans, but it should be, realistically, this should have been the easiest 9-10 out of 10 review ever. And the fact that it's not is kind of telling. Like, how did you make doubt come into the equation with a book about the animals of Avatar, where all you had to do is just fill it up with amazing art, which you ultimately do with the slightest of caveat to that, and then the text is unfortunately a pretty major miss. That's a bit of a problem to me. So yeah, let's continue through the kind of visual kind of approach to the book. Domesticated animals is up first, and then you get, this is where they break it down further. So the first section is animal best pal. So these are the animals that Aang views as being particularly friendly, to the point where you can be like best friends with them. So of course, the winged lemur is here, and you can see another black and white image, sketch image of Momo, alongside some of the text. Then you get your full page image for Momo, and then another page of text with Momo. I will mention this page just because it does something that's a little bit different, and this doesn't appear too many times in the book, but you'll see here this kind of separated out quote. This quote is from like the text here, or I think on the previous page, and they only do this, I think it's like 4 or 5 times in the entire book. This is not a regular thing, but it feels like this is just put here to kind of fill in space. And I'm like, I don't want to get super skeptical and be like, is that in place of like another image of winged lemurs? And I'm assuming it's more that like, okay, they wanted this image here, but they can't make this too much bigger. It's not going to fill up more height on the page, and it's just a bit of an awkward situation. They didn't want to leave a big gap. Is that what we're talking about here? But because it appears so few times in the book, it just kind of feels like, come on. Okay, it is what it is. Very minor kind of criticism there. And yeah, winged lemur, because it's a very notable animal, gets like that many pages. A lot of the animals, as we go forward, you can see here, they get 1 page. So you can see here the ring-tailed winged lemur, the kind of Korra variation of the winged lemur, gets a full color insert image, a sketch image, and then also with Milo's insert about this animal, because it's a Korra animal that Aang doesn't really know about. He says it in the text. He thinks it's extinct. Milo talks about how it's not. You get this. It's actually John O'Brien art here. It's just a Milo sketch of the animal. It's kind of cool. The iguana parrot gets a sort of similar treatment on the other page with like a few more sketches, but 1 color image. And then you can see other animals get this treatment where it's like, okay, 1 page with black and white, 1 full color image. It seems to mostly be if they view the animal as being like in any way notable, they give it a full color image. So for instance, the dragon hawk, I think primarily because of Hawkeye, they give this animal the full color image. Even though maybe as an animal, it's not the most like dragony, it's not the most hybrid-esque animal. Some of the other ones maybe could have done it before this, but it's Hawkeye, you know, you kind of had to a certain degree. And we sort of continue along that trend as you go into like the Shearshu, the cat gator. There's inserts from like Do about the cat gator, of course, the croco cat, the goat dog. I will mention the gorilla goat, one of the gorilla goat pages here, because of course you get your full art image of, you know, Flopsy basically, but in the natural environment, which is cool, because of course we only really see Flopsy in Omashu, not in the natural environment. You do also, on the sketch image, you do get to see what a young goat gorilla looks like. And you see this again. There's a couple of other animals they do this with. I think it's the Komodo rhino. You also get to see what a young Komodo rhino looks like. Like they also kind of do it for the ostrich horse here. There's a young ostrich horse. But yeah, the Komodo rhino. They also show what young Komodo rhinos look like. So the art does have a kind of informational aspect to it as well, which is another point I'll make about the black and white art, is just that the color is also an information aspect about the animals. Certain animals, like say dragons, are kind of notable because of their color. We know the obvious, Ran and Shaw being like red and blue dragons, but we also know there are green dragons and white dragons, and it gets a little bit frustrating when you're looking at the sketches and it's like, are those two sketches just Ran and Shaw again, or are they a different color dragon? Because the text doesn't go into details about the colors of dragons, and I don't know what color they're meant to be because it's a black and white sketch. There's little moments like that where I don't think they maybe fully thought through some of the presentation of the book. And I think it's similar across like some of the other animals. Like, let me just go back to the page about the, where is it again? Yeah, the cat owl. Like, this is, I think, what they should be using the black and white images for, where they actually zoom in on a specific feature of the animal. In this case, the sort of the paws, the claws, the talons of the cat owl. This is a good use of the black and white drawing to get across the kind of technical detail of how that works. Whereas if it was in full color, you might miss some of that. Whereas, say, this one, where it's just a standard image, I'd like to see maybe a slightly different colored cat owl than the main color image. And that would be my preference for kind of how the book is done, with sketches more being like images that really make use of the fact that it is that sketch and can maybe have that more kind of technical drawing aspect to it. And that would be my preference, just to get as much information across with the art, given that the text didn't kind of deliver. Now, admittedly, that's where I'm assuming the artists had no clue what the flavor text on the pages was actually going to be, and so there's always going to be that slight, you know, disconnect there in terms of like everyone is not like absolutely like collaborative on every single part of the book, in that the writers are writing the text, the artists are doing the art, that sort of idea. But you know, still cool. And then you get into the sections where you're going over some of the other animals. Here's like the eelhound page, and then pig hybrids. You'll note that they don't have a page for every single pig hybrid, but instead group them up together here, and they actually give them a couple of color images here to get across the different ones. So you know, you can have like cow pig, I think this is like a deer pig, chicken pig, sheep pig. That's a fun kind of thing to do. Overall, you got the hippo cow, otter penguin, and it's nice. As like just an art book thing, I do think it's just, when you see these full page pieces of art, the standout part of this book is, wow, that's an amazing image right there, by Julia Schleicher. And most of the art in the book is really, really good. Like, I would not actually criticize like any of the art as being like bad art, like at all. I think it's all good. I just wish there was more full color art. That's my preference in the book, and that the black and white stuff was just used a little bit more sparingly for the effect that you can get from having it be more black and white. That sort of idea. Because, you know, it is still a really nice art book. It's just, it does feel like the book never quite maximizes what it needs to do, in my opinion. But, you know, I'll just end by just kind of highlighting some of the really kind of strong stuff here. Like, obviously, all the full color pieces of art are amazing. I would love to see a lot of this stuff collected into like a poster collection or something like that, because I think it is really, really that good. But yeah, the enlightened animals at the back of the book. So like I said, that's dragon, sky bison, badger mole, and lion turtle all get double full page spreads pieces. No other animal gets this except these 4 animals at the back of the book. It's really, really amazing art. So yeah, that Ran Shaw is incredible. But also, I will highlight the lion turtle page, just because, again, lion turtle is probably one of the ones people are looking out for the most. Look at that. Look at the sense of scale from that, as well as the detail. Like, you can see the little ship here, and there is a person just there on this, and it's just an incredible sense for like, this is how big this animal is. We know how it is because we've seen line turtles before, but I think it's got across really well in this image with the art by Chiakiro with Avatar Studios there. So that's interesting, highlighting that, you know, Avatar Studios was involved in the process on this book as well. And then I mentioned in the review on Tuesday the sketchbook section of the book, and there is that. You do get some kind of concept art sketches here showing some of the processes on some of the big pieces of art in terms of like, yeah, you have the full color, full completed version in the book, and then here's it like kind of just before it's colored in, and then here's the initial kind of core image. It's pretty nice, but there is only like 4 pages of it. And it feels like, yeah, there could have been like a little bit more, but it's nice for kind of like what it is, of course. So overall, it is, I think it's one of those ones where like, we've had so many years to build up our thoughts on what this book could and should be. There's a lot of, I think, just kind of built up fandom opinion in a way on what a book like this could be, and could they ever live up to the expectations. While I do think fan expectations can sometimes be out of line, I don't think I went into this expecting the world in terms of like crazy amounts of new information. But I do think I was ultimately let down by just the core information from this book in terms of the text. The art is amazing. It's definitely worthy to be an art book, and I think the physical edition here is very, very nice. It is just that the decision to make it an in-universe book, especially written by Aang and not like a zoologist, affects the book because it feels like it gives the writers a little bit of a get out of jail free card in that like, oh, I don't actually have to write new stuff about the animals because I can just talk about like Aang or Sokka or Toph's experience with that animal from that episode. When I think the point of this book is not really recapping that info. You expect more from, I think, a big Dark Horse book, because they do the main comics. You have one of the show writers on this book, and it does just feel like it's a little bit below par on what it should have been in the writing department. So this book, I think, is completely held up by all of the amazing artists who did art for this book, and unfortunately just a little bit let down by the text of the book. And I don't think you can dismiss either section. The book is both things combined. Me saying that, like, okay, if you just view it as just an art book, it's great. But that involves, like, you kind of ignoring kind of half of what the book is. Because, like, a lot of the book is actually text. But it's kind of incredible how little information almost gets presented in this much text. So that's why I think I settled probably on the idea of like 7.5 out of 10, where the book is still good. I want to be clear, 7.5 out of 10 is good, but it does lose quite a few marks for some of those things that could have made this book as good as it could possibly be. And it's that sense that I don't think the 9 or 10 out of 10 version of this book, the theoretical, like, amazing version of this book, is an impossibility. I don't think it was something that could never happen. That, like, there's no way a writer could actually, like, meet the expectations of fans. I think this is just below par. And that actually a little bit more focused time spent on that text could have turned this into something incredible. And then there's also the sense, but, like, you know, does it matter when this? Look at that. Look at that. Does that, the text is a bit like, bring it down that much? It depends on what you want out of this. I went into this because they described it as a art and lore book. The lore, no. Art, yes. And in that sense, I think 7.5 is probably the right-ish score. Some people won't value the text that much, and the art will get it to maybe those really high scores. Some people might value that the text for them was the most important part of this book above everything, and the book's lower. And I think that's where it's about. So they're my thoughts on Beasts of the Four Nations. I would probably say maybe the biggest disappointment is just that I think this is probably like the end of my coverage on the book. I would love to potentially do a separate video, but I almost feel like after now covering my initial thoughts in the video on Tuesday and now actually talking about the physical book, I really don't think there's enough detail or kind of interesting stuff from the text of the book to warrant doing like a separate video, because there's just not that much there. And I don't want to just put up a video that's kind of just showing off most of the art in the book, like, necessarily. That's for people to actually get the book and kind of experience. So, let me know what your thoughts were on Beasts of the Four Nations. What are your thoughts on sort of the balance of this book when it comes to art versus text? How that in-universe decision with Aang being the writer affects the book? What edition of the book are you planning to get? If you are planning to get the book, let me know below. But that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.